Hello everybody, I'm here from the Kriminalakte for a chat with Ben Aaronovitch. He's a writer of the Peter Grant novels and the Rivers of London, books, novels, comics. The German title is Die Flüsse von London. And he got, I would say, 2 new books with him for this tour. The first one is in English titled A Winter's Gift. The German title is Die schlafenden Geister des Lake Superior, which is out more or less now. And the second book, it's a little bit older, is Amongst Our Weapons. The German title is Die Silberkammer in the Chancery Lane, which is with Peter Grant. But let us talk first about Winter's Gift. That's a novel with Kimberly Reynolds. Can you tell us a little bit about this novel and what was inspiration for this novel?
It's always very difficult to talk about what the core inspiration for a novel is. They generally sort of like bubble up from your subconscious, rather than, like there's a moment where you go bing. I mean, sometimes, yes, there's a moment where you just go ding, I'm going to do that novel, but most of the time you're just kind of noodling away, you're just kind of thinking, and then you think, we could do it a bit like this, and we'll do a bit like that, and it firms up, and then it becomes a proper novel. So in this case of the Kimberly Reynolds novel, the novella, although what I like about the German novellas is that when they're translated into German, they get a third longer, so they become pretty much short novels at that point, is that I knew it was going to be in winter time. I wanted an isolated small town, and all of this was leading onto one of those creepy stories where someone enters into a small town and has to find something, and it's creepy and it's snowy, and you're fighting the elements as well as whatever you're fighting, and it became very kind of about as close as I'm ever going to get to a kind of like an existential horror. So there's lots of sort of like creepy almost body horror and stuff like that in it. And I wanted a rising sense of dread. That's what I was aiming for in this one. But I write funny. I can't help it. So you'll get a rising existential sense of dread, and then a joke, and then a rising sense of that's just the way I am. But that was basically where it came from. I wanted that. Then it was the question of locating where I was going to put this. Finding a small town. When I found the small town I liked, I started doing research into what was close to it, where it was, its history of the area it was in, and that suggested the story, which I'm not going to spoil, but that suggested the story, which then became the novella. And with the novella, you don't need too much story. In fact, you don't want too much story. So you want it to be boom, boom, boom. You want to go in, dum, dum, dum. You don't have like subplots in a novella in the same way that you do in a novel. So I just sat down and started writing it, and then things would emerge and I would change things as I went along. So that's basically how that got written.
And can you tell us a little bit about Amongst Our Weapons? That was the last Peter Grant novel.
Well, Amongst Our Weapons is a much simpler one. My agent said, have you seen this place, which is the silver vault underneath Chancery Lane, which is the German title. And I went and had a look at it, and I just thought, oh God, I've got to kill someone in here. So, then I'm asking myself, why is someone dead? What did they die of? Why is the folly? Why is it a problem for the magic police rather than the normal police? Then I started writing that, and it's basically about the history. It's basically about the past coming back to a lot of my books are about the past coming back to haunt people, and this is basically where a group of friends at Manchester University are involved in what you could call a ritual, and this makes them vulnerable to the return of what we'll call her the Angel of Death, who is looking to kill them because it's really happenstance. It's not even personal, and Peter has to kind of stop the Angel of Death before everything. I mean, before the angel of death kills people, and being Peter, he wants to save the angel of death as well, because that's the way Peter operates. So it's the question of not only can he save the people, but can he save the angel of death from herself?
That part we won't spoil, but I think now is a good time that you tell us a little bit about Peter Quent. What is he a person and what makes him special?
Well, he's my character, that's what makes him special. Peter Grant is a bog standard Londoner. He's from North London, you've got to say it like that, North. He's from North London. I gave him a background so that quite close to where I grew up, so I didn't have to mess about. His mum is Sierra Leonean. His dad is a failed jazz man. He was a very talented jazz man, but kept on slipping into drugs and kept on, he'd get a career and then he'd throw it away, basically. He's done that about 3 times. Now on his 4th career as a kind of geriatric jazz man. Peter joined the police after, messing about, doing all sorts of the things that you do when you drift from job to job. You can't find what you want, you're very restless, he really didn't know what he wanted to do, and then he sort of drifted into policing and found he really liked it. And then after being on probation for 2 years, which is what happens in the Metropolitan Police, he meets a ghost and takes a witness statement. And it's the fact that he takes a witness statement from the ghost that brings him to the attention of DCI Thomas Nightingale, who runs London's magic police, basically, which at that time consists of just him. And he takes on Peter as an apprentice wizard. And Peter, who knows a good thing when he sees it, goes, because magic, who wouldn't want to learn magic? Basically. So he decides he's going to learn magic, which is quite a commitment. And what makes him special is he makes connections. Right? Peter's always making connections between people, between things, between places. And he's got a mind that thinks in terms of systems, which is actually how modern society works. So crimes are not solved by detectives' hunches and not really, not in the real world. They're not solved by people kind of like going, I know it's him, he's a villain, right? That's usually how you end up with someone, the wrong person in prison. He knows that crimes are solved by systems of inquiry, systems, and he likes that kind of thing. It's very German, actually. It's actually this sort of thing. And so that's kind of what makes him special. He's good at it. He's good at systems. He's good at inquiry. He's good at making connections between people. So he gets allies very quickly. He goes out and finds people who will help him. And I think that's basically his superpower. If he has a superpower, is the fact that he's actually very likable. People like him. He just worms their way into their confidence. They think they may start off kind of like looking down on him or regarding him as a nuisance or something, but they just, in the end, they become his allies because he's just persistent and wins them over.
And he isn't afraid of chaos, or to.
He's
chaos.
a police officer, so he's used to chaos. But he's not afraid of it, but he sees it as his job to end chaos. That's his job. He'd bring order out of chaos. That's what he sees his task in the world as being. If there is chaos, his famous line is, when asked why he became a policeman, is this. He says, when someone shouts or screams and everybody thinks, oh God, somebody should do something, but they don't know who should be doing that thing, right? He says he doesn't have that problem anymore. That's his saying.
You said, and it also is amongst our weapons, and Winter's gift is the history, a large part of it, and it's essential for the ghost and their behavior. And what kind of research do you, or in which part of history are you interested?
I'm interested in all history. I like the Romans, but I've never looked at a period of history and thought, oh God, this is boring. Right? It's all interesting. Even like social history from the 1960s is interesting. Even kind of ethno-mythological studies of kind of German peasants in the 14th century. It's all interesting. My only regret is that I just don't have time to read all of it. I'd read all of it if I could. And it's not just history, I'm very interested in the way things like cities develop. The way that, the particular position on a river. I mean, I've heard a rumour that Munich basically is there because somebody wanted to make beer, right? And that's the founding principle of Munich. One day I will nail that one down and that will go in a book because that's just too fun. Too much. I mean, that's great, isn't it, Munich? I mean, or why Prussia? Why is Berlin the capital of Germany, right? Why Berlin? Why not Vienna? Why not, why not Munich? Why not Aachen? These are all things that I find very interesting. Why is London the biggest city in Britain? What were the factors? I mean, and has been for 2,000 years. So it's not like London just went, oh, I know, I'm going to be the biggest city like recently. It's the biggest, been the centre of trade in Britain for 2,000 years. What was the thing? Was it just because it was founded by the Romans, or was it the position on the river with the bridge across the river, right? These are things that interest me. I'm like Peter in a certain extent, is that I'm really interested in systems. I'm really interested in processes. And so therefore, I'm always finding, and also there's just great stuff out there to find. Wherever I go, there's just interesting stuff to find. I bet you if I went into the history of this building that we're sitting in right now, I would find at least one ghost story and 5 or 6 historical incidents that could be turned into a book right now, right? I mean, it's just, I never have a problem finding things to write about, okay? Because there's people are interesting. I find people interesting. Okay, I'm not one of these writers that lives in a cottage in the middle of nowhere and hates people. I like people. I'm interested in their lives. Even boring people are interesting in a weird way. At least, maybe why are they so boring? Okay? And nowhere is dull. Everywhere has a history. Everywhere has a story to tell. And a story is what writers use. Writing is about stories. Anyone who tells you different is lying. It's about stories. And stories are free. There's no copyright on history. You can just, I have that, thank you very much.
Maybe now point. Can you tell us a little bit about your writing process? In 2 minutes.
I love the idea of a writing process. Well, I'm going to change the question slightly. I'm going to give my advice to starting out writers because I always get asked this, and I feel I can be helpful. One, right? The difference between a writer and a non-writer is that the writer writes. Okay, it doesn't matter if you write 50 words a day or 2,000 words a day. Right? What you must do is you must sit down and you must write some stuff. It doesn't matter if you do it only on Wednesdays, right? But you must be sort of like semi-consistent, that you keep going until you get to the end of the story, which is why a lot of people start with short stories, because you can get to the end of the story quite quickly. 2, buy an expensive chair, right? If you're serious about being a writer, buy an expensive chair, because if you're going to sit in that for 8 or 9 hours, you may be 25 now and thinking, I have a lovely back, I never have any problems. When you're 40, you're going to start having back problems if you don't buy an expensive chair. And 3, write what you want to write. Okay, you will hear a lot of people saying, oh, research the market, think about what you're writing. In the first instance, you must write the story that you want to write. Now, you may then go on to aim for a quite restrictive genres, like, for example, crime, which is quite a restrictive genre in many ways, or romance, which can be very restrictive, but also very lucrative. So, it's not to be sneered at, romance. So, you must find what you want to write, and then look for ways to sell what you have written. Okay, you may have to alter it once you've written it, but in the first instance, write the book you want to write. Okay, you can take advice on techniques and whether you should do scenes a certain way, or should you not have cats in it, or should you have cats in it, whatever. Yeah, you know, some people. Well, I have a friend. This is a good example. I have a friend, Andrew Cartmel. Okay, and I'm very fond of a book called "How Not to Write a Novel" by Howard Middlemark, right? And in it, there's a chapter called "Oh, Pretty Paws, You Know Me So Well," or "Why you shouldn't put your cat in your novel," right? And my friend said, "But I love my cats. Can't I put my cats in the novel?" I said, "In your case, you should put your cats in the novel because you will write about them realistically." And they do. The cats are very popular in the novels. The cats are, you know, they don't take over the novel. They're not twee. Don't go every time they come on the screen. But they are interesting. So you can break the rules, but you have to know what the rules are to break them.
That's right. And a little bit combined with this question is another one. As I said, you write novels, novelettes, comics, with Andrew Cartmel, who you mentioned now.
Yeah.
How do you decide which story is for which genre or which length?
Comics are graphic novels have a different structure from novels and novellas. So novella, like I said, is usually one plot with no subplots in it. A novel, much more complex. You're usually dealing with 3 or 4 different plots in a novella because it's longer, it's got more complexities in it. Comics, you do different things in comics. Comics are a different medium. It's like television. It's a different medium. You tell the story differently because it's visual. You can do things in comics that you can't do in novels. So I basically, me and Andrew do things in comics that we can't do in the novels. So for example, we do stories that are very visually interesting. So stories that rely on visual impact, which comics are very good at. Or stories that go from the viewpoint of other characters, or multiple viewpoints of other characters, because we don't do that. I don't do that in the novels. The novels are always Peter Grant, or Abigail, or Kimberly, but they're always one viewpoint. So you basically work out what stories you want to do, and then what kind of... It's just experience. I mean, I've been doing this now for 30 years, so I automatically sort my stories into what kind of stories they are. When a story idea comes up, it comes up with a label. Because I am a novella, I am a novel, I am a short story, I am a graphic novel, I am a TV series. You know, it's just experience. You just get in your head. It just sort of comes up. I once had a producer who said, "How do you know this is a 30-minute episode?" And I said, "You just know how much story fills 30 minutes." He wasn't a very good producer, and is now no longer working in television, thank God. So,
I mean, you got excellent TV. The Doctor Who, the Sherlock, we also liked here.
yeah, well, it's got its moments.
Yeah. And now I think we come to the last question, and that's always my question. As writers or readers, can you give us 5 reading tips for, I think, the next holidays, except of your own books? I mean, this goes without saying.
Yes, my books, definitely. My books, all my books, if you haven't read any of my books. No, Eli Griffith, who has written masses of crime, British crime, obviously. I like Eli Griffith. If you haven't ever read Terry Pratchett, you must go out and buy all the Terry Pratchett books now. Read them all, or I'm not going to talk to you. I like, for science fiction fans, I like Louise McMaster Bujold, but I suspect everyone who likes science fiction has probably read her. C.J. Cherryh, that's more science fiction. A lot of science fiction, I read a lot of science fiction. My tastes are a bit old-fashioned. I don't normally kind of think of this. Yeah, that's what I've got off the top of my head. I'm sure there's lots of other writers that I will think of next week, and I go, oh shit, I should have said that, but that's what I've got. Basically, because that's what I'm reading at the moment.
Or a special book, if there is.
A special book?
This one.
I don't... yeah, well, there's an audio... I don't know. I don't really have a special book. I mean, I have a very obscure special book, which is Gorilla My Love by Tony Cardiff-Bambera, which is a collection of short stories that I'm very, very fond of. But I'm not sure it's everyone's cup of tea.
Okay, no, I think that's enough, and thank you for the talk.
Thank you for talking to me.
Yeah, we are looking forward to the reading and to your next novel, which will be out next year. The next Peter
Hopefully, yes, if I get time to finish it.
Okay.
I've got to go home and write it now. That's the terrible thing. Thank you very much.
So, have fun with the writing.